If you're a Christian, you believe that God made all things, and he made all things good. But marijuana is natural. So did God put marijuana on the earth for us to use? Is weed a gift from God? Can a Christian smoke pot? Let's consider. Hello, I'm Chico. Welcome to the advAnswer, moving faith forward. This is a question that's become interesting of late because now marijuana is getting legalized. Christians are kind of looking around thinking like, so is that something that we're allowed to do or what? I had a good buddy that used medicinal marijuana for pain, and he was a Christian. In fact, he was the leader of our Bible study. So we have these questions that are popping up, right? And it's difficult because marijuana wasn't mentioned in the Bible. Of course, not mentioned just because it wasn't in regular use at the time. It would be like, saying, well, the Bible doesn't mention internet porn, right? I mean, so what do we do about it? Well, probably the Bible doesn't want us to look at porn, but we wouldn't, we have to actually extrapolate that information from what we are given. So now we have to look at the Bible and say, from what we are given, is marijuana something that Christians should be able to do? What should we think about this? So I'm going to present to you some arguments for and some arguments against Christians doing or smoking marijuana, or whatever weird way we have nowadays to use it. Number one, marijuana is natural, right? Weed is from the earth. I don't know if you ever, I don't know if I should even mention the movie Friday, right? I used to watch the movie Friday, and that's what Smokey would say. Weed is from the earth. God put this on the earth for you and for me. This is probably the poorest objection or argument for using marijuana. Because God put hemlock on the earth too, right? He put all kinds of poisons on the earth. He put lead on the earth. You don't want to smoke lead, right? So just because something's on the earth doesn't mean that it's something that we should use, especially in specific ways. Number two, marijuana is legal. Marijuana is legal, and a Christian should just, allow whatever legal thing. We shouldn't be legalistic, right? Unfortunately, there are things that are legal that are not good for us to do. So, for example, cheating on your spouse is something that is legal. Doesn't mean that you're supposed to do it, or even that it's good for you to do. Jesus doesn't even want you looking at other women in lust if you're a husband, because he considers that cheating. So, yeah, there are some things that we are told not to do, even though they are illegal to do. It does do, by the way, but this is an interesting argument because it does do away with a specific argument against marijuana use that Christians used to use was, we're supposed to follow the law of the land. And so, yeah, now that argument is gone, right? If it's legal now, then all of a sudden we're left with this question as Christians, like it is a legal thing. Should we do it? Should we use it? Probably the best argument, I would say, for recreational use of marijuana is this. Recreational use of marijuana is less harmful than other things that we allow as Christians, ourselves as Christians, right? I mean, I'm not really talking about legalizing marijuana or marijuana use amongst people that aren't Christians. Just as a Christian, what should we do? So, for example, alcohol. It is legal, I should say it is acceptable for Christians to drink alcohol, at least in many denominations. And yet, the marijuana is a lot less harmful than alcohol, so the argument goes, right? So, for example, you've probably heard of or know aggressive drunk people, right? People that get drunk and then they want to fight, or they get in cars and they, get into accidents and things like that. Nobody wants to fight on marijuana. Right? Nobody smokes a joint and is like, let's go mess stuff up. You can black out or die from alcohol poisoning, but you can't do that from marijuana, right? So at least I don't think you can. Man, you'd have to be smoking an absurd amount, I think, to die from marijuana overdose. But in any case, I mean, I get you could die from any kind of overdose, right? Even water overdose. But we're talking about, is it plausible that you could? So those are some possible reasons for allowing marijuana use. However, I do think that here are some objections to this argument. Number one, regular use of marijuana has been strongly correlated with some certain mental disorders, including schizophrenia. So that is a possibility with alcohol, but only on heavy use. In marijuana use, it affects your mind in a different way. So that is a possible danger as Christians that we should be worried about. And as Christians, we are told that our bodies are our temples, and the Holy Spirit resides in our temple. So we do want to take care of our bodies, right? It's not the case that we get to just do whatever we want to. So yeah, we should definitely be worried about that. Also, we are told not to spend our time inebriated, right? Drunk, it says in the Bible, right? But that most likely also applies to getting high. Is there a reason for using recreational marijuana but not getting high? Not that I could know of. So I would say most likely no. However, we do have, medicinal marijuana still as a possibility. Is that permissible? Here's an objection to marijuana use. That in the Old Testament, the word pharmakia is used for witchcraft. And that's the same word that we get our pharmacology from, right? In other words, drugs. So when God says no witchcraft, he is including drugs in that. I think this is a very poor objection. You can't argue from etymology, from the where this word came from, to saying this, therefore that's what this means here. I don't think we can make that argument, so I think that's a bad objection. An objection that I have heard as well is that medicinal marijuana is not helpful. And I think that comes a lot more, as Christians, I think we need to worry about this. I think that comes a lot more from Christian taboo against the use of marijuana. So I told you my friend used medicinal marijuana for pain management. He was quadriplegic. He passed away recently, and he was always in pain. And it shocked me the first time he said that. Like it took me aback. I couldn't. I was a little astonished. And he even had a vape pen that he would use for it, right? And that was weird for me because I know the youngsters are using that, and that blew me away. And I was like, dude, what? I was thinking of listening to him say that, but I know he was a strong believer. He was our Bible study leader. So here's a guy that's been walking for years and he's using it. And so finally at the end I was like, dude, that kind of struck me as weird that you do the medicinal. And he was like, well, the other stuff they give you is opioids, like basically heroin. Would you prefer me be using that? And that was a good point. I thought, this is definitely less harmful than opioids. So if it works, right? I thought, yeah, maybe it's just this taboo that I have as a Christian, And I've heard people say this. I've heard pastors say this. People don't really want medicinal marijuana for these kinds of uses. They just want it because they want to get high. And I think that is a dangerous perspective. And here's what I mean by that. I think that we don't get to say what people do and don't want to do. That is something that, like, you're just, I don't know, you're just really like scorching the earth on some people there, because they're not going to be, my friend Patrick, he definitely wanted it for pain use. In fact, he would limit it. He didn't like the way it worked, so he limited it. And for me as a Christian to come along and say you can't use it because X, Y, and Z, I think is a bad policy, right? I mean, I think in general for us as Christians, telling people like trying to change their behavior rather than change their faith, right? I want people to follow Christ, and I think He's the way, the truth, and life. And I want, for their sake, because I love them, I want them to accept Christ and then I want them to, follow Christ as best they can. But if they're doing all these, if you're behaving great and everything, but you're not following Christ, then okay, well, that doesn't really help me at all. I want, Christ for people, because I want people to be saved. So I don't think that's a very healthy perspective. So I think there is a case to be made for medicinal marijuana. If it works, then we should use it. Marijuana. Here's another objection: marijuana is addictive, and this is partially true. It is addictive, and it is more addictive than when I was in the 90s, when I was in high school. People would say that marijuana is not addictive at all. It is partially addictive. However, the withdrawals are much, much less than alcohol or even smoking, smoking tobacco. So, yeah, this I don't know. I think it's still worth taking seriously, because you'll know that if you start this, then it will be difficult to give up. And especially if we're told not to be, getting high, and that you're not supposed to do that, then I wouldn't start it lightly, But yeah, so it is addictive, yes, but I don't know how strong of an argument that is. Another objection: marijuana is mood changing, and often in a bad way. And this is something that I think we also do need to take very seriously. My buddy, like I told you, the quadriplegic friend of mine that was always in pain, bound to a wheelchair, he was taking it a little bit, but he told me, and in one case, in one sense, he liked it because, it kind of freed him up to play a little bit more with his son and enjoy that. But in another sense, he didn't like it because it also decreases your inhibitions. So he would get angry for absurd reasons, for reasons he wouldn't be normally upset with his son, or he would say things that he normally wouldn't say. And I think that's a problem. We are, as Christians, we are always trying to present Christ in a loving way. And if we are letting things like marijuana get in the way of that, then that's a problem. Also, we are possibly going to be more apathetic. Marijuana is very known for being a demotivator, right? I know some of you that smoke pot might think, well, that's not true, right? I'm a very motivated person. I don't know. If that's the case, then if you're less motivated as a Christian, I do think we are given a very limited amount of time on this earth, and with that time, I think we need to make the most of it. And if this substance is getting in our way of serving God better, then I think we just don't do it. I think we give it up. I'm not going to tell you that you're an evil person or anything like that, but yeah, I think probably you shouldn't. Also, if it's causing your brothers to stumble, Paul says that you should not do something. And so if you are smoking pot in front of all these Christians, and they're like, oh my, this guy over here who I thought was a strong believer is no longer, he's smoking pot all the time now. If that's going to cause them to stumble, then, just give it up. Even if it were something that you were allowed to do, if it gets in the way of your brother serving Christ, then you give it up. Yeah, that's I guess the whole of it. I think, in other words, I think marijuana recreational use is something that Christians probably should, I would say, very, very highly should not do, unless you're using it in the most. No, I wouldn't even say that. Nobody's going to use it just for the taste of marijuana or something like that, right? You shouldn't be using it recreationally. Medicinally, though, I think as a Christian, for pain relief or for other things, I'm going to let your doctor tell you. You know what I mean? Like, I think we as Christians should support each other in certain arenas, and if this is one of the things that you need for something that you have, and then I don't think it behooves us as Christians to just be like, oh, you shouldn't do that, right? Like, oh my gosh, and get all over everybody's case. So yeah, if this has helped your faith or understanding, If you're a believer or you're not a believer and you're just seeking or anything like that, then please like and subscribe. Also, if you have any further questions about this topic, or if you have some question about anything in the faith or any other faith and you want to ask, please comment below, and I'd love to take any questions. That's all I got. Adios.